Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Christina Silva, and I'm so pleased that our Educating Our Veterans Live mission comes true with each and every show. We bring you empowering and motivating guests, and they share a trailblazing portal into their lives. They are service members. But this month, leading up to the 250th birthday of our United States Marine Corps, I'll be featuring some delightful Marines that have accomplished so much in so many industries. Today, we have a Chief Warrant Officer, too, Mr. Bill Angel, joining us on the Christina Silva Show to share his experience in the biomedical engineering field, and he also moved into several other fields throughout his career. And as a retiree, he's working more than he ever expected in his very favorite hobbies. So, joining us with a big warm welcome is Bill Angel from San Diego County. Hi, Bill.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining me today to share so much of your experiences. We'll start with your elite Marine Corps career.
Okay.
And we'll start from the yellow footprints when you joined the Marine Corps. What was your ultimate motivation?
Um, Honestly, I needed to get out of the small town that I was growing up in. Um, I, like a lot of people, I had somebody that I looked up to my entire life. He was 5 years older than me. He was the captain of the football team, and all the cheerleaders just gathered around him at the games. And he was, president of his class. And every year he would accomplish something, and I go, I want to be just like Dale when I grow up or when I get out of school. So Dale graduated. He went to college. He got a 4 year degree. And that told me, okay, I need to graduate and I need to go to college and I need to get a 4 year degree, just like Dale, because I'm going to be like him. Well,
Wow.
my senior year in high school, this is where it takes a turn. My senior year in high school, um, my town was so small. We had one gas station. It was a Gulf gas station. So I pulled into the gas station one afternoon to get gas, and guess who pumped my gas? Dale pumped my gas.
Wow.
Out after going to college and getting a degree, he worked midnight at the local plant making vacuum cleaner hoses, and he pumped gas at the only gas station in town during the day. And so my idol Dale went from who I wanted to be to who I wanted to be the exact opposite of. The next afternoon, I drove down to the recruiter office. And the only recruiter in the office was a Marine recruiter. And sad to say, I had no aspirations other than I wanted to do 2 years. And he said, well, 4 years you can do this, and 4 years you can do that. And I go, you don't understand. I just want to get out of town. I want to do, I can't live. So I went in on a 2 year enlistment. And before I got out of boot camp, I added 2 years to that so I could go to engineer school. But I joined the Marine Corps because I didn't want to be like Dale anymore.
Wow. That's incredible. From 1971 to 1983, you gave your life to our United States Marine Corps and learned the principles of esprit de corps, and you were enlisted and became a Chief Warrant Officer. Let's
Yes,
talk
ma'am.
about some of the highlights from your enlistment period of the first 7 years of your career.
Okay. Um, I guess the first highlight, my second duty station was in Kaneohe, Hawaii, and my MOS at the time was refrigeration mechanic. I showed up in Kaneohe as a lance corporal. I was a squad leader in boot camp. I graduated from boot camp as a PSC. I graduated first in my class at engineering school in Courthouse Bay. So I got promoted out of school. I showed up to my first duty station as a lance corporal, and they didn't know what to do with me. So they put me in the base maintenance department working in the refrigeration uh, department with everybody else but civilians. And the civilians didn't know what to do with me either. So for the first few weeks, almost a month, I sat at the picnic table in the lunch area every day for the first 2 weeks before I started finding things to keep busy. Um, from that, the program that I ended up kind of being a model for, they brought in other Marines. They brought in a couple in the electrical shop. They brought in a couple for refrigeration. They brought in a couple of plumbers. And they actually had a program where young engineers that graduated out of Courthouse Bay actually worked alongside the civilian in the base maintenance shop, doing the same thing the base maintenance guys did. It was a program they'd never done before, and it became very successful. And because of that, they awarded me orders to Kaneohe, Hawaii, um, and an accommodation, well, a letter of accommodation. And I showed up in Hawaii as a Lance Corporal. Um, had never had never worked on a military base. I was used to working on commercial refrigeration equipment. So that was an eye-opening experience. I ended up being there for 7 years, even though it was a 2-year tour. Um, 4 promotions later, a couple of meritorious mass, a couple of Marine of the Month, and I was a staff sergeant with 6 years time in service.
Congratulations. What a prime duty station. Hawaii's beautiful. I've actually been to Kaneohe Bay, and it's a beautiful place, nestled out there by the hills. Great place to ride your motorcycle. I drove on the Big Island over to Pearl Harbor and also to the other Marine Corps base that's there. And what a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
But you still have the same rigorous training under your belt, and you still revered leadership, and you had greater aspirations to become an officer. Let's remember some of your mentors and comrades, maybe a challenge or what you did to get the promotions you spoke about. Give me an overview summary of your Marine Corps history as an enlisted Marine.
I really just did what I was supposed to do. There was a point in time where I was almost court-martialed because we were getting ready for an IG inspection, and everybody was told to work um, basically from 7 in the morning to 10 at night. And at the time, I was playing volleyball. I had things going on in town, and I would leave work at 4:30 in the afternoon. Everybody else was staying till 10, and I got several direct orders from my platoon commander at the time and even my commanding officers to stay and work. And my deal was, sir, I do my job every day. I don't need to stay extra and do my work because I get it done during the day.
Wow.
Um, so I was basically waiting on um, office hours, the non-judicial punishment, and the inspection that we were preparing for ended up changing the dates, and they came a week early. Once they finished their inspection of the squadron, my shop was the only one that got an outstanding out of the entire squadron. So instead of me going up for NJP, they augmented me onto the inspection team, and I went with them for the next 2 months and taught the other squadrons in Hawaii how to do the job the way I did it. Because, like I said, my shop was the only one that got an outstanding. So I went from almost court-martialed to being on an inspection team from headquarters Marine Corps, teaching the other squadrons how to do the job the way I did it.
Oh my.
I had I had some incredible NCOICs as a young Marine. Um, one of my NCOICs in Hawaii ended up being an NCOIC for the shop that I was assigned to as a warrant officer when I was stationed at El Toro. So I went from having an awesome NCOIC that I learned a great deal from. He was now a gunnery sergeant, and I was a warrant officer one, and he was my senior enlisted person in my platoon. And from day one, I was like, I, what am I going to teach you? How am I going to lead you? The things I do are because of what you taught me to do. But we had a great relationship. We got along. We knew what each other was thinking. Um, we played racquetball. We played tennis together. We played a lot of sports, competitive on the base. We picked up where we left off, and we were still together in Hawaii. I had some phenomenal leaders. I had some phenomenal instructors, and I really didn't do anything outstanding. I think I just did my job, and I just tried to do it better every chance that I got. Um, and I don't see that I did anything outstanding. I just did what I was supposed to do. I didn't know any better.
Right. Isn't that interesting how we can think we're not doing anything outstanding as Marines, but they have made us elite from the training we receive once the feet hit the footprints, right? Those
Yeah,
yellow footprints change our lives forever. And that was just what you had to do to be excellent in your work, to avoid a court martial, but also to stand up for being a great instructor. And then they appreciated your way of making good change come to your duty station where you led others and you created relationships and you also exhibited the traits for being resilient and also giving more than you had to give, but you just thought it was natural. That is the definition of a Marine. That's why they call us the few, the proud. But I would
yes.
like to thank you for your service and to elaborate and define for the world upon your meritorious mass. I received one myself, and it was a very difficult time when I did receive it. But looking back, being called outstanding by someone else is what a true Marine values because we get the job done. And that's what you've said. I was just doing my job. So tell me a little bit about your meritorious mass.
No. Um, you know how many years ago that was?
Yeah.
I what one question I remember was how many holes in a C-rat cookie, and questions like how many trucks are there on the Marine base. Stupid, absolutely stupid questions that had nothing to do with anything other than I think they just wanted to see what your reaction was, and it was fun to have the answer to that question when they expected you to just fumble around and not know the answer. Um, I remember getting, there were 6 or 7 people on the board, and you're standing there at attention and you're answering questions, sometimes from 2 people at the same time. And I really didn't feel any pressure from that because I don't know. Again, I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I stood there and answered the questions. So it wasn't that difficult a situation. I wasn't intimidated by the officers on the board. The questions were silly, most of them, and I'd already shown that I could do my job, or I wouldn't have been standing there. Um, so I ended up with the meritorious mass in I think a couple of year period of time, and one meritorious promotion from corporal to sergeant.
Wow.
Again, I didn't do anything any different than anybody else did. I just tried to do the best that I could.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate your humility and you're not conceited, but you were an upstanding Marine and you're a big and tall man by stature. And I was writing about you and I was looking at your amazing career list of accomplishments. And I want to say, my goodness, going from a staff sergeant to a chief warrant officer is a short time, amazing promotion. Tell me about being a chief warrant officer and what you remember most about the training school and people you remember that you look up to or still are in contact with.
There were several. Well, like I said earlier, I was the youngest in the class. I was junior by several years. The average time in service was about 14 years, and some of the people had applied 3, 4 times before they got selected. I guess I failed to mention I did not submit my package. My commanding officer submitted my warrant officer package for me, and I didn't know anything about it until he called me into his office and told me that he had submitted my package. So I got selected the first go round. There were 400 applications. They selected 248
Yes.
of it. But I honestly, I didn't even submit my package. My commanding officer did that for me. So I, I knew better than to talk a lot because there was a lot of experience in that class. There was a lot of history in that class. There were guys that had more ribbons on one column of their shoulder bar than I did total. Some of them had been in Vietnam 2 or 3 times. Some of them had served other places, and I really didn't know much to contribute much to the class. So I listened a whole lot more than I taught, and that's probably what got me through the class. I just shut up and listened.
That's a great point. That's what I wanted to hear in your elaboration about becoming a chief warrant officer. Being the youngest in the class or being new at something, you can listen and absorb a lot and adhere to the principles that you're taught in the most elite fighting force, and you will be successful. Marines are so genius and so well trained. We keep those traits as we segue out of the military into an entrepreneurial career or going into corporate America. And that is what you did. But there's something else that I want everyone to know that you did that's exceptional that many don't know they can do or didn't do until later in life. And that's use your benefits and earn a higher education while you're on active duty.
Yes, ma'am. It was a 2-year degree completion program. All I had to do was go to school, keep a short haircut. I would get visits from the local recruiter unannounced. He would check out my uniforms and look at my grades, report back to his command on he would talk to my um, instructors as far as how my performance was. Um, I was on active duty, so I was getting active duty pay. They were paying for my schooling, for my books. They paid for my rent. I got money for groceries. I was probably one of the few kids in my class that actually had food in the refrigerator. So I had an outstanding study group because everybody wanted to be in my group because I had food in the refrigerator. Um, so I could pick, from the other kids in my class who I wanted to study with. Um, basically because I had something to offer. And again, keeping a V average wasn't that difficult. Getting a haircut every 2 weeks wasn't that difficult. A lot of people in my class didn't know until graduation that I was actually in active duty because they'd never seen me in uniform. I just sat in the back of the class, took notes, took the test, and got my way through it. I really didn't identify with anybody because they were 3 or 4 years younger than me. Um, so I didn't interact with a lot of them. They really didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them. And I was there to study. I wasn't there to go out and party with them. Again, I did
Interesting.
what I was supposed to do.
Yes. So from Hawaii, you mentioned El Toro. I love that base. I was stationed there. I was sorry when they closed that base, and I ended up in Camp Pendleton. Did you ever go there to serve?
The only time I was in camp, El Toro was my last duty station. Um, I was with Wing Engineer Squadron 37, I think it was, and
Hmm.
I was the utilities officer. I was the platoon commander for the utilities platoon. The Marines under me in my platoon were generator mechanics, generator operators, heavy equipment operators, refrigeration mechanics, plumbers. Um, I had done all their jobs. I had a toolbox in my office. If the Marines came in with a problem, they couldn't fix the generator. They had trouble working on the refrigeration unit. I taught a lot of them how to braze and solder better than what they were taught in school. Um, I taught the electricians how to solder better because I'd been doing it longer than they had. There wasn't anybody in my platoon that I couldn't go out and work with right next to them and do exactly what they were doing, and sometimes help them learn their MOS better than what they had that they knew, just because I'd been doing it longer. And so uh, I had I could operate any piece of heavy equipment that we had, and I could work with anybody. I rarely told anybody what to do, but if it was time to sweep the maintenance bay, I would get a broom and start sweeping. And it wasn't like everybody else was sweeping. I just did the things that needed to get done. I couldn't ask somebody to do something I wasn't willing to do. So if the shop needed to be swept, I picked up the broom and swept. And it wasn't 5 minutes. There were more people sweeping than we needed, and I didn't have to sweep that long. I just set the example, and they picked up on it, and everybody got along. We um, we worked well together because I knew their job, and I would support them. I wasn't there to tell them what to do and give them orders. I was there to make sure we got our job done.
That's so great. You've had a wonderful Marine Corps career, and everyone, we're talking with our subject matter expert today, Bill Angel. He went from enlisted as a staff sergeant to a chief warrant officer, and we all know that a chief warrant officer is a leader of sorts. So, Bill, as a chief warrant officer, how many people did you have to lead, and what did you enjoy most about that
There
billet?
were approximately 80, a, a utility platoon was approximately 80 people, um, male and female, even back in the late 70s. Um, I enjoyed not so much the leadership, but I enjoyed being able to I could do the things that everybody else could do. I didn't, I didn't have too many issues with people because like I said, we all work together, and I've always enjoyed being part of a team. I guess that's going to come up later, I'm sure, in your questions, but I enjoyed being part of a team, and I enjoyed
Yeah.
working together. I wasn't one to sit in the office and tell somebody else what to do. I'd go out and work with anybody, and my job is to get the job done.
That's great. I love what I'm hearing from you in, again, your big and tall stature is that I hear consistency, I hear respect, I hear honor, courage, bravery, I hear promotion, I hear meritorious, and I hear able to do any job at any time, and that you are adaptable. You transform, adapt, and overcome. That is what the Marine Corps teaches us, how to adapt and overcome.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
we're going to move into the segment about your career in biomedical engineering. Give us the scenario of how many years you worked in that field, and some of the greatest clients and companies you worked for over the years.
Um, I when I left active duty, I was hired by a company out of Ohio that was a they made refrigerators and freezers for blood bank storage. I actually had another career path picked out before I left active duty, and it was just about a week before I left active duty. I was at a hospital and I saw a guy working on the loading dock on a piece of equipment that I recognized as a freezer. Turned out it was a blood bank freezer, and he was there doing a repair. Um, I probably talked to him for about an hour. It turned out he was the supervisor for the field service department, and he was out here in California interviewing people for because they had an open position. Uh, we exchanged phone numbers, and he called me, set up an interview for the next day, even though I already thought I had a job when I was leaving the Marine Corps. I sat down with him in a coffee shop, and he asked me a bunch of questions. He showed me some blueprints, and we discussed, some of the things that he was doing in the field. And at the end of the interview, typical interview, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us. We have some more people to interview, and if we're interested, we'll give you another call. We'll give you a call back. Well, he came in tonight. Said, we talked about your background and we talked about your interview. We decided not to interview any of the other 10 candidates. If you're interested in the job, we're going to hire you. And again, it was more of a conversation with the guy on the loading dock at a hospital, not a future, supervisor. But I ended up taking that job, and I worked for them for 5 or 6 years. And I got an offer to become the biomedical engineer at the Blood Donor Center in Los Angeles as their biomedical engineer. I thought I'd give a shot at working in-house as a biomedical engineer, opposed to being in the field service covering California, Arizona, and Nevada in field service. So that's where my biomedical engineering experience started, was in the blood bank in Los Angeles.
Yes, you're no stranger to living internationally in the same industry. Share more.
Geez. So Red Cross was okay, but I enjoyed field service much more than going to the same place every day, going to the same office every day, seeing the same people every day. So I, at a short time after that, I met a guy through my church that he owned a company in Huntington Beach that was an electronic plating company, and they were working on a project with another company in the United States to do a joint venture with the Chinese government and build a plant in China for electroplating and electronic stamping of electrical components and electronic components. They hired me as a project manager. They brought 13 engineers to the United States, Chinese engineers. I trained them for 2 years on the processes that we do at the two companies here in California, help design and the facility in China. Once the facility was finished, those 13 engineers went back to China, and I followed them shortly after that, lived in China for 2 years, and got that manufacturing company up and going, and trained the other 40 engineers that they hired in China.
Wow.
And as an example of what that company was able to do, one of the first parts that company made was a connector, much similar to some of the connectors in the automotive industry. But at the time, it was costing 33 cents to make one of those parts, because the part would get formed in the United States. It would go to China to get electroplated, to come back to the United States for quality control, and a lot of them failed the test of quality control. But there was a 3 or 4 month period between it getting coded in China and the quality control test here in the United States. The idea was to make it all happen in China, the quality control, stamping, the electroplating. But as an example of how successful that project was, those actually cost them 33 cents a piece. The factory was up and running in China, and because of the process in China, the cost of that part went from 33 cents a piece to 0.3 cents a piece.
Wow.
And the turn was a week instead of 4 months. So again, I just did what they wanted me to do, and they had hired some amazing engineers, and they were all young and energetic and willing to put in as much work as was necessary. And that project was very successful. After 2 years, the only way I could have stayed with the company was to stay in China. And I was missing the Western food and the Western toilets and the Western bathrooms. And so it ended up only being a 4-year project. But I knew that going in. It It wasn't a career. It wasn't something I wanted to be doing. It was just a challenge to go to another country and do something that nobody else had done.
Wow, I just listened to you and I'm like, what golden nuggets you're sharing with the audience of how to master anything. It's to sit back and listen, analyze, make sacrifice, and take opportunities when they manifest. Right, Bill?
Yes, ma'am.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you that you have used your benefits and you've traveled the world and you've worked consistently in an industry, but within that industry, you've grown and you realize when you have opportunity, it's okay to make a change the right way and learn from others that are willing to trust you in your professionalism to grow.
Yes, ma'am.
Then all of a sudden, you make a change into a completely different industry and you caught a weather bug.
Well, in my time as a biomedical engineer, when I got back from China, I was hired by 3M to work on cardiovascular equipment, and that was another field service position. I um, I worked on equipment in the operating room, the equipment that keeps patients alive when the surgeon stops the heart and the blood starts pouring out of the body. It goes through a heart lung machine and then back into the patient while they're working on the heart. And that's the equipment that I worked on. I went from being a field service engineer. I became the supervisor for the department, and I made sure that I had more equipment to work on than any of the field techs did. In addition to my territory, I also traveled with them once every 6 months for a week, or they traveled with me in my territory uh, for a week every 6 months. So they saw how I did things. I traveled with them, and they saw how I saw how they did things, and we kind of all just worked together. Everybody pretty much did things the same way, just because we worked so well together. Um, After 10 or 11 years, I got tired of being, you know, my environment was 65 degrees and fluorescent every day working in the hospital. And I looked for something different. I went from being an engineer working on cardiovascular equipment and took a job with WeatherBug working on weather stations and meteorological equipment in schools in California, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington, D.C., or Washington State. And I did that for almost 10 years until I retired in 2021. With WeatherBug, I was in 32 countries. They could send me anywhere in the world with a toolbox, and I could install a weather station or a lightning station, do the programming, do the install. I could mount the equipment on the wall. I knew how to build the equipment. I could do the wiring and the programming, and they didn't have to send 2 or 3 people. They would send me, and sometimes I'd be in 4 or 5 different countries before I came back to the United States. I'd be gone sometimes 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I don't know if you can see behind me, there are some spots on the wall, way back in the back. You can see the 3 clocks. So when I traveled, I I put a tag on each of the clocks of the country that I was working in and set the time to that country. So my partner would know what time it was in the country that I was working in. I don't know why I did that. It was just something I did. So so she'd know what I was doing. I've lost your sound if you can hear me.
You there?
was sharing with Bill that it's okay to collect clocks because I collect challenge coins. And so that's amazing that you have traveled the entire world. And I was bragging about you to the audience that Marines can do anything. And of your career in biomedical engineering through the weatherbug career that you had, you are still working as an accomplished retiree. But before we tell everyone about the many things you're doing in your career, we have to finish to implore the audience about your VA benefits because you are a homeowner and you used your VA home loan eligibility. We'll talk about that experience and also about your employment and your education we talked about and your health benefits because the
Okay.
VA is out there for everyone, Bill, and some listeners may be shy to activate their VA benefits. So let's start with your experience with your VA home loan first.
Um, I bought my first house when I was stationed in Nebraska for 2 years, and I actually bought my first house from the guy that I was replacing I was an instructor at a reserve unit, and the person that I was replacing had already gotten orders. He was moving, and it was just an easy transition. We got along really well, and it was kind of a smooth transfer from him owning the house to me owning the house, and it it was it was so uneventful. I don't remember many of the details. Um, we worked out the conditions of the sale, all the documents, all the papers and stuff got signed. Um, his real estate people worked really well with mine, and it was seamless, really. Um,
Wow.
in a very short period of time, I was a homeowner as a young Marine, young single Marine in the middle of the country in Omaha, Nebraska. Again, I hadn't planned it. I didn't have a plan. Things just it worked out the way it was supposed to. I guess.
It definitely did. Congratulations on that, on your degrees with your Marine Corps special program that you studied for while you were on active duty, for buying a home and utilizing that earned benefit and your VA. You can activate those medical benefits anytime, but we were sharing a talk about the greatness of knowing your physician and taking care of your body. I just want you to give one tip to everyone as an adult what we should do to live long and live well and to be happy. What should we do medically, whether it's the VA or your own physician?
I know I have friends that retired that probably still would not be alive had it not been for their VA benefits. A couple of my really close friends have had back problems, from the service. A couple of guys have had knee replacements, um, all through the VA, and their medical care has been phenomenal. They None of them have had any complaints about the quality of the service that they've gotten. They No one's complained about the surgeries, the issues with surgeries. I know everybody's heard nightmares about the VA can be just a difficult place to be at, but I have not personally seen any of that. I don't know anybody that's experienced any of that. Personally, myself, I've had the same physician, the same general practitioner for almost 30 years. He knows my medical history. He makes sure that I get my appointments and my physicals and things scheduled on time. I had an issue a couple of years before I retired. I basically had a heart attack and went to the emergency room. Um, I was treated, released about 5 o'clock in the morning. I went home, and right about 7 o'clock, I got a phone call from my physician wanting to know if I was okay and if I was well enough to come in and see him that morning. I didn't call him. He saw that I'd been in the emergency room, and he called me as soon as he got into his office that morning. And was insistent that if I was able, he wanted to check me out and see if there was anything else that we needed to do. He takes very good care of me. I know there are procedures he does in his office um, with regards to steroid shots and some other things that he does that maybe he's not supposed to do. But I have learned to trust him, and he's never done anything. I've never left his office in worse condition than I was when I got in. So I think I got lucky with a very qualified physician, and I've, I've managed to not do so much damage to my body that I couldn't have it taken care of with routine medical care from this, like I said, the same physician I've had for almost 30 years.
Yes. Well, thank you for your service and for your openness and willingness to share a portal into your life, because the medical pillar of our resilience with physical, social, and spiritual make us whole. And that balance is very important, but we can't do anything unless we're healthy. So
I
thank you
guess,
for sharing that, whether it be your own doctor that you trust or care in the community from the VA, telehealth, you can have a trusted agent to take care of you. Do not skip your physicals, everyone. Go down to the VA, get registered for your benefits, and make sure that your service connections are listed. And you can file a claim by going to va.gov. You can find out about more of the programs and get a private doctor through Care in the Community if you're eligible and the VA is full and can't see you right away. But don't skip your medical appointments, right, Bill?
yes, ma'am.
Now we're going to have a special message from the Christina Silva Show, educating our veterans live community sponsors. And we'll be right back after this short break.
Brought to you by sponsors that care about military members and their families. Be Percy Ready. Plan with the app and evacuate with the Percy Vest. All of the essentials in one place to help your family stay safe in disaster. Just grab your Percy Vest and go. It's hands-free, lightweight, and easy to find in a rush. PercyVest.us. Diversify your investment portfolio with the Wealth Builders Mastermind Group, created by John J. Sneed, aka the Stock Professor. The Wealth Builders Mastermind Group is running a special to show you how money really works. Join the Wealth Builders Mastermind Group now for only $99 for a 30-day unlimited access to the Mastermind Group course and community. The WealthBuildersMastermindGroup.com is here to help you diversify your portfolio and earn wealth while you're sleeping. Take your brand to the next level with Beverly Hills Webs, pushing the boundaries. Dream, plan, develop, and make your brand a reality. With Beverly Hills Webs CEO Cheryl Bernard.
Bill, thank you so much. Now we get to get up close and personal with you for your favorite pastime after years of working so hard. And as a retiree, you shared you're a retiree. You have plenty of time to be flexible and give back to the community.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll start with you and the words. Well, it's an acronym, NRA. What does that mean to you?
National Rifle Association is well, it's the backbone of the Second Amendment community. They've been around for years and years. I have seen more than one place where there are people that have commented that it was the first civil rights group in the United States. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but I've taken several classes through the NRA. I've also taken several classes through USCPA. I enjoyed their training because it's the same training. It doesn't really matter where you take the class. The attitudes are the same. The training is the same. Their methodology is the same, and they teach their instructors how to teach exactly the same way that they were taught. So the training is consistent. I think they send a good message. I wanted to, while I teach weapons, I teach handguns, I teach rifle, I teach shotgun classes. I didn't learn how to teach those by becoming an NRA instructor, but I have a document that says I am an NRA instructor. So I have a piece of paper to kind of back up the teaching that I do, the techniques that I use. It's not just my word that, yes, I know how to handle weapons. I have documents that show the same. And the same with USCCA. As a firearms instructor and a range safety officer, through the USCCA, you have to yearly show that you are teaching people as a range safety officer, as a firearms instructor. You have to submit training rosters and show that you're training people regularly throughout the year in order to maintain your training status. So when I help people with issues, I mean, I'm not a great instructor. I can teach somebody that hasn't handled a weapon before. I can teach them how to do it safely. I can teach them how to do it properly, and point them in the direction that they need to go in for more training, more advanced training beyond my capabilities and the things that I enjoy doing. So the
Thank
NRA
you.
it's a building block for learning the process and having an organization behind you that that supports the Second Amendment rights for everybody, and also for shooters, whatever level of weapons that you're interested in. I think it's a great organization, and I hope it stays around for quite a long time still.
Most definitely. I'm a member of the NRA as well, and I enjoy my firearms hobby, but I know that the right to bear arms, our Second Amendment, is a right and a privilege as an American citizen. And some may not feel comfortable with guns because they are dangerous and misused by some citizens. And that's what we don't want to promote, but what we do want to promote is safety. And I wish that safety classes were a mandate for every owner. They have to take a safety test, but what about safety lessons? Wouldn't
Yes,
that be
ma'am.
wonderful if it was mandated to go and
Yes,
spend a
it
week
was.
at Front Sight like you and I have?
I love the time at Front Sight. Those people were very professional, and again, if you took a 4-day handgun class on range number 3, and 3 weeks later you took the same class on range number 20, and it was a completely different set of instructors, it was almost word for word. The
Oh,
training
yes.
notch, the professionalism, the way the techniques that they taught, it was like a robot. They all were. Some of them were fat and short, and some of them were tall and skinny, and some were female. But they all used the same verbiage. They used the same language. They used the same technique. It was hard not to learn because of the consistency. I
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed the training and the
me
opportunity
too.
to do it.
I miss Front Sight, but Staccato is the new Pahrump location that also has elite training. But we've got to take some of our dividends from the Wealth Builders Mastermind Group before we can afford Staccato. It's kind of expensive, but
It,
it's worth it. If you want to train, make that one of your vacation weeks and take yourself to the range. It is so relaxing and so reassuring that you're operating your firearm and having it well maintained, and also trying out other weapons that may fit you better, because Bill's going to share with us you can become very rusty if you don't practice, right, Bill?
I I take a 4-day beginner handgun class every year, and invariably one of the instructors will say, "Bill, you've been taking this class for 4 or 5 years. Why do you keep coming back?" Because I can finish in the top 5, 10 people in the class. But the reason I take a beginner class, they teach malfunction. They teach pressure, for
Oops.
different shooting drills and that sort of thing. If I have 6 concealed carry permits from 6 different states because I travel a lot and I want to stay legal in the states that I travel in. But if I can't, honestly, Christina, the bottom line is, if I can't manipulate my handgun, if I can't clear malfunction in 3 seconds, if I can't change a magazine in 3.5 seconds, if I can't do those things, I shouldn't be carrying a weapon. So I take the beginner class every year just to make sure that I'm still capable, that I can still manipulate the weapon, I can still shoot, I can still hit the target. I don't get yelled at from the instructors because I'm doing something wrong. That tells me I'm still capable, and that gives me the confidence to carry, knowing that if there's a situation arise, combination of situational awareness and actually taking a class and having the confidence that I've passed that class, that gives me the confidence to know I can pretty much handle myself in almost any situation that comes up. I've taken situational training classes. I've taken live fire classes. I've done classes in like home environment and buildings, commercial buildings. So I've had a lot of things thrown at me, and I think I have a fairly good grasp on what to do in any situation. First thing I try to do is flee. Just because I carry a weapon doesn't mean I'm going to use it. I would look for a way to get out of the situation, if at all possible. And that's one of the first things I teach, and that's one of the first things I was taught. Just because you carry a weapon, that does not give you a license to use it.
That's profound. Precisely. Practice is perfect when you know your weapon and you understand the beginner's course while you're either using your handgun or your rifle. Then second nature is operation of the weapon the proper way. And you save yourself and others around you on the range or whenever you have to use your weapon. If you're taking these classes, especially for the legal protections
Yes,
of
ma'am.
home security, and different states where I'm carrying a CCW, their laws there can be a finite difference between what you're able to do and not to do. And you can go to jail when you're the victim if you're not operating your weapon properly and carrying out the use of it to protect yourself against someone that may be trying to harm you or encroaching upon your space. So thank you for that, Bill. When you say situational awareness, I watched you in action when we met, which was a couple of weekends ago, and you were always aware of your surroundings, and you asked the body of the class where we were becoming instructional leaders in a training course, and you said, does everyone know where the exit is? Does everyone know the primary door that's open, although there are 2 exits? Are they both unlocked? And I really appreciate that about you, that you don't put your back to the entrance, and you're always aware of your surroundings, and you figure out your exit strategy wherever you are. Correct?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. Always.
Thank you. Could you tell the audience what they can do when they're out dining or with a group of friends to take on a new safety aspect as we approach the holidays? And every day, honestly, crime is rising so much. Bill can share with you his color coded strategy on situational awareness and how to apply certain safety techniques. Go ahead, Bill.
Um, wow, that's a lot. I thought this was only a 45-minute interview.
We're almost done.
Situational awareness is it's constant. Whether you're at home or whether you're going to the grocery store you've been to 100 times, paying attention to the people around you. I see so many people, they get out of their car and they're walking to the grocery store and they've got a phone in their hand and they barely look up to see if they're going in the right door of the store. And even walking around the store, they're on the phone, they're talking on the phone. You can't pay attention to your surroundings if your head's buried in the phone. One of the females in the class where I talked about situational awareness asked, what's the best thing that she can do when she's on the street? And my best advice was, if you don't use your phone, leave it in your pocket until you get where you're going. But if you have to, put your back against the wall, put your back against the vehicle, sit down somewhere in a situation where there's nothing coming from behind you. Stay on the phone as little as possible and check your surroundings. Occasionally look up and acknowledge the people that are around you. And once you're done, put the phone in your pocket, your purse, your backpack, and then again, check your surroundings and then continue on your way. Of all the things that you could do to help your situational awareness, is just don't get lost in your phone. I see people step off the sidewalk on curb. They didn't see the curb. They dropped the phone breaks. If the phone had been in their pocket, that wouldn't have been an issue. When I go into a restaurant or any building, the first thing I do is I pick out another exit, because typically a person's habit, the worst habit you can have is out of the same exit that they came in on. And in emergency situations, that is a horrible condition to be in. So I look for another exit. I at least one, so that if there is a situation and I have to leave that room, I try to make it so that I don't leave the way that I came in, because that's where everybody else is going to go. So those two things: backing against your wall, pay attention to your surroundings, and if you have to exit the building, go out a different exit. Don't go out the way you came in.
Most definitely. Well, there's a color code system that I learned about with Bill. And in short, he's just going to tell you 4 colors and what they mean. And he will give you a resource, or I can give you a resource on where you can become situationally aware and be trained on your firearm. Bill, just tell us the 4 colors briefly, if you don't mind, about where you should be to be on the ready.
So it's the color code of mental awareness. In the military, it's known as the ODA loop, OODA loop. ODA is observe, orient, decide, and act. That's the military side of it. The conditions are white. And when you're unaware of your surroundings, condition yellow is when you're alert and aware of your surroundings. Condition orange is when you're aware of your surroundings and you sense that a threat is coming your way, and it's time to make a plan for that. Condition red is when you have to put that plan in action, when you're threatened and it's an imminent threat, and you have to put some plan in action that you planned during condition orange. I add another color to that, and I call it condition black. When something happens and you're caught so totally unaware that you freeze and you don't know what to do, you don't react, and you end up being a victim only because you didn't have a plan. Following and understanding the 4 colors of mental awareness and situational awareness keeps you out of condition black. When you freeze and you're a victim because you don't have a plan. And that is absolutely the worst place you can find yourself in.
Well, San Diego's lucky to have you, and we are too on the Christina Silva Show. Bill Angel is going to wrap up with his closing segment to brag and to be very proud of the organization we both volunteer with to make a difference in communities that have just undergone a crisis, disaster strikes, and Team Rubicon USA is there. Bill Angel is serving as our Team Rubicon San Diego logistics coordinator, and he's going to share with you what being a Sawyer for 4 years means to him and some of the triumphs of restoring communities, along with our strike teams and gray shirts. Bill, tell us more.
I joined Team Rubicon because I wanted to be part of an organization that was involved and that was doing something. I am a member of CERT in the local community, and I'm also on the Fire Safe Council. I'm responsible for writing and maintaining the CWPP, which is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan for Poway. And as part of that, we were looking for an organization that can do some fire mitigation I came across this group called Team Rubicon, and I thought I should do some research into Team Rubicon and see if that's the organization that we could use to do some fire mitigation in my community. 3 weeks later, I'm serving as a gray shirt on my first operation with Team Rubicon in National City in San Diego, and we're mucking out houses and helping homeowners clean up their house after the flooding that happened. I guess that would be 3 years ago now. And I have since taken as many of the FEMA incident command system classes that you can take. I have become a sawyer with Team Rubicon. That's probably my favorite day of work. The harder I work, the bigger my smile is, and you can't. It's hard to work harder than being a sawyer when you're cutting wood all day. That's one of my most. But the bottom line is, we're helping somebody else that's had a really crappy day, and it gives the people that are there an opportunity to come back. I don't know the people. I've not had to interact with those people. I can't imagine what they're going through, but I know I'm doing my best to try to make their next days, their next few days, a little bit better. And when you're sitting on a cooler at the end of the day with a beer, and you look back and you think, man, I had an awesome day, and somebody's happy because of the things that I did, and it kind of makes that beer taste better. And I'm already looking forward to the next day by that time.
Oh, I'm so honored to have you and to congratulate you on your volunteerism, because on the Christina Silva Show, we know educating our veterans live is about finding a home with a charitable organization that is actually doing the work and changing lives and getting shit done. And that happens at Team Rubicon USA. Check it out and join us. The organization is filled with military veterans that follow the regiment to get communities built back stronger, and they restore communities with the same essence and esprit de corps to create resilience that the military armed forces do. But as two Marines, we want you to take a look at Team Rubicon USA to either give or join us in the plight. You can be a civilian in your community and you can join online, and then you'll be deployment ready. I've gone on a few deployments, and the greatest time I've had so far as a member since 2019 is to work with the LA fires. I peered out the window, I saw the LA fires, and then I was able to do the most in a capacity where my body could physically give back. And that was with PPE gear and giving parking permits and working with vendors that were going there during the first phase of recovering the community in Pacific Palisades. Bill, I know you've gone on several deployments. I just want you to say a couple of the things about current efforts that are going on in New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas as we wrap up the show to show the true meaning of what Team Rubicon is doing on such a large scale around the world.
I know that there are operations going on in Arizona, where in the area around Phoenix from the recent flooding, and some of those areas that have been cleaned up have now flooded again. So I know there are already plans to go back into those areas and continue the cleanup. There's been some flooding in New Mexico, where there were people from all over the country basically going to New Mexico to take care of the cleanup efforts there. We just finished one in Altadena up in the LA area. There were over 100 gray shirts. Again, they came from all over the country. They were sawyers, and they were general gray shirts, cleaning up people's property, clearing trees, putting up security fencing, working with the LA Sheriff's Department. They did over 600 homes in about a 6-week period with security fencing and cleaning up property. And I know there's already plans for more operations in Big Bear and up in the Ventura area. It'll probably be taking place in the next 2 or 3 months. And it's one of those, whatever the next disaster is, people have their go bags packed and they're just waiting on an opportunity to go somewhere. I know I come back from a deployment. One of the first things I do is repack my go bag because
Yes.
I want to be ready for the next opportunity to go somewhere and work with somebody else as soon as possible. I don't want to get an email asking me if I'm willing to serve, and my answer has to be, well, I really need to do my laundry, and I need to pack my go bag, and I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Being ready to go, having a go bag ready is probably the easiest thing to do, probably also the most important, if you want to be able to be ready to go the next time you get an email asking you if you're ready to serve again. So I do know there are operations coming up. The storm that just went through here in Southern California is going to create some more work locally. There are operations going on all over the country at any given time.
Thank you, Bill, for your efforts. Thank you so much for being a great Sawyer and a great community activist and a Marine. This is a show where we taught you how to be at the ready with situational awareness and also a few organizations that you can get involved in, starting with Team Rubicon USA. You can also go to the Red Cross and become first aid certified and visit your local fire department to become a certified emergency response team member, just like Bill and myself. All you can do is find out about free training that enriches your awareness and your ability to serve others. And when you do that, you become fortified and you will be ready when disaster strikes, because it can come at any time, night or day. Happy holidays, Semper Fi. We're looking forward to a great 250th celebration. And we'll be back with the next Christina Silva show. And we want to thank Bill for his service and time today to talk to us about these topics that are lifetime matters. You can listen to the Christina Silva Show 24 hours a day at camis2civies.org and read about his tremendous story and contributions professionally, in the military, and now as a volunteer leader at Team Rubicon. We'll see you next week with more Educating Our Veterans Live. Peace out, and may God bless America.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Bill. Semper Fidelis.